I can't see.
Can you see my screen still? No?
No.
I can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it.
So you can see my screen now.
Yeah,
Yes?
I can see it.
But I cannot see it. Why?
I can see it.
So if you cannot see it, can you just indicate, let me know how many people can see and how many people can't before I proceed? Because it's very important that everyone see my screen. Otherwise,
I can't see it.
So who's start? Let me just track you.
Sheriff can see it.
Sharif, yeah. Let me track you down. Are you using a computer?
Yes.
You should be able to see my screen. Can you try and log out and re-log in though? Because
Okay.
it shows
Okay,
on
I'll
my
do
screen that you should be able to see it. Can anyone else not see my screen? Okay, brilliant.
Okay, I will log out now.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we have Pradeep. Pradeep is on the call. Pradeep is the former head of compliance monitoring. He's also former regional head of financial crime and compliance monitoring and testing. He was also worked as RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, also Citibank and Barclays. He has also worked in all lines of defense, both first line of defense, second line of defense, including third line, which is audit. So he is currently a director for a company where he actually provides consulting as well. So in GnB, just to run you through again real quick, GnB started in 2014, 2016, we started our academy. In 2018, we have GnB Consulting. And our statement, our mission is to promote international standards. Our vision is to become a global regulatory hub, acting as a bridge between government and investors. Our value is integrity, professionalism, and adherence. Yeah. Okay. Our services actually span through consulting advisory, tax advisory, career development. We also provide KYC, ML, financial crime and compliance training. We provide operational resourcing as well as we take on both large and small projects. Delivery. You can find us on Instagram, GnB_Academy. You can also find us on LinkedIn, GnB Academy. Yeah. So let us discuss KYC, ML, career paths and opportunities. Okay. Any question before I proceed? And I'm hoping everyone can still see my screen. Okay. Brilliant. If that's the case, now let me just give you a bit of insight into according to JobWatch 2020. Now what I've done is I've pulled up some data and I've benchmarked it against specific roles. So these are not all the roles that you could ever work in KYC, AML, or financial crime and compliance. This is just more of a representation of the roles according to JobWatch. But I'm going to talk about a deeper roles that you can work, where you can work, what you can do, and to set you on the right path. The reason why I'm taking time to explain this is because, especially for those of you who do not know what KYC or AML is, you do not have any idea, or you haven't worked in the financial service industry before, or you're looking to start, you don't even know what it is. I just want to give you a backdrop because it's important for you to be able to have an idea and information to know what you want to do and where you want to do even before you start. Because if you start before finding out what you're going to do, what you'll find yourself doing is you might find yourself actually in one particular role for multiple years and not even progressing. So it's important that I lay everything down. You then assess yourself, or you can consult us, then we'll talk about it one-on-one to see where or how you want to go about it. So if you look at the first chart, it's gone up to 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, and 16 years before dropping to senior analyst. What this actually means is if you're money driven, so if you join, if you try to get a job in financial service industry, especially in financial crime, KYC, ML, for the purpose of money, you might end up as a senior analyst or QA for as long as possible. So we see a lot of people who is working in the industry for 10 years and they're still just a KYC analyst or a senior KYC analyst at the most. They might think that they are progressing, but I can tell you categorically from the data that we've pulled together, their role might change as KYC analyst, senior KYC analyst, SWAT team. They might have names like QA, senior QA. All this still sits between the analyst and the senior analyst role. Yeah, depending on the organization. We have another one. If you're career driven, you might in between 2 to 10 years, say 12 years. I think there's someone's microphone still on. Do you want to check, please? Or I might just track you down and mute you, but I wouldn't like to mute you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right, brilliant. So if you're money driven, that you might actually spend about 16 years in the same role. However, if you're career driven, you might actually find yourself being a manager. So you manage team, manage controls, or wherever you're managing. So it could be within the compliance, it's financial crime, it could be whatever you're managing, basically. And it depends on job title. So a lot of different banks might actually pay you differently for the role of a manager. Some bank can pay you 90 grand, some bank might pay you 30,000, it depends, but you will still sit between the manager level. Yeah. The last one, which again is just a representation of a category, is the advisory, strategic, and consulting. Now you're talking about people who are actually more in the consulting space, you're more in the advisory space, or you're stepping into the director level where you're making decisions in strategic. Those are people that are passion driven. So you must know, I know if you're thinking about it now, you should know where you're actually falling into. If you're just looking for money, then you know what you're up for. If you're looking for career, then you know where you're up for. If you've got a passion for financial crime, maybe you don't even know you've got a passion now, which was my case when I started. I didn't even know I had passion for it, but I do. So again, by year one, you should know what you want and where you should specialize in. So if you've been in the industry for more than 1 year and you still don't know what area or what part of financial crime or compliance or within the whole risk framework that you want to settle in, then you might want to retake and reassess yourself, because according to the data, you should have made that decision. There's no way you wouldn't know within 1 year, except you don't want to recategorize yourself. So you should know by now if you're money driven or your career or passion. Definitely you will know that. Or I'll leave that up to you. So when we're talking about the areas in which you can go into when you start as KYC AML, you can either go into compliance or financial crime, and you can end up in audit, which forms the third line of defense in financial crime. The reason why I'm taking my time for the first part to talk about career, because it's very important, and it's as important as the KYC and the AML information that we want to discuss and learn as well. Okay, permanent versus contract jobs. Now I want to talk about permanent job. I know for the new starters or people that are quite new in the industry, you might be thinking what is permanent or what's contract, especially the graduate. So a permanent job is when an organization actually takes you on permanently and you go through your 6-month probation. After 6 months, they take you on, then you take your benefits and you take all that. Or you could also go as a fixed term, but I've put fixed term as part of contract here. But when it's contract means it's for a particular duration. So for permanent, there's no duration. You join the organization, you join them. But for contracts, you sign a document, an agreement, a contract to say, I will work for you for 6 months, or I will work for you for 12 months, or whatever, and we'll pay you certain amount. Majority of the time, contracts do not come with packages like benefits, insurance, all those other extras, bonuses, and all the stuff doesn't come with it. So that's why some people usually opt for contract, because it pays more, but it doesn't take into consideration your pension and all that stuff. But for permanent, then it takes that into consideration. So this is according to JobWatch 2020. So what we've done is we've looked at the years going by 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17 to 2020 and see how that has actually played out, so that you can make a decision based on the data as well. You could do your further research if you want. So if we look at this, according to permanent job have been quite stable for a while. It's been going, but there was a very high spike between 2019 and 2020, and I'll tell you why that has increased. So what I mean is there's an increase in the job for permanent between this time. I mean, it has always been regular, around 0.15%. You know, it's always 15%, 20%. It's been normal, but when it got to about between 2019 and 2020, the rate and the demand for permanent staff went up, and that's due to IR35. For some of us who are aware of that, so IR35 is a law that was actually introduced by the government to actually curtail tax avoidance. Yeah, I'll explain that in a minute if I have time. So for contract has always been on the high side. If you look at the graph, you can see that contract has always been, the demand for contract in KYC AML industry has been very high, which means it's an indicator that there's always a need for skill sets. So any industry you see or you identify that the demand for contract is always high, it means that the underlying regulations or the underlying rules and regulation constantly changes. An example is IT. You would always get a high demand in IT. Why? Because technology is ever evolving. It's the same with finance as well in terms of AML and KYC. A lot of people have actually asked me, a lot of people who's done PPI has come to ask me to say, is KYC similar to PPI? No, it's not. The reason why it's not is because with PPI, there is no ladder, there's no career path. You can actually work in the PPI doing complaint and other stuff for as long as there is, but with KYC it's quite different. With KYC, you can decide that in the next 2 years, this is where I want to be. In the next 5 years, this is where I want to be. And that's the reason why I'm giving you this full download information. And we also have a package on career paths that I can provide with you later after the session. Okay. So what does this indicate? This indicates that in between 2019 and 2020, when there was a fall in contract job, that was because it was perceived, the IR35 impact was perceived because a lot of organizations did not want to fall on the bad side of the government. So majority of them were taking a different approach. So the demand for it in the market began to change. Why? Because of perception. A lot of agencies would rather not advertise permanent contract job because they don't see it as a long-term gain for them. So they were advising the majority of their potential employers to seek either fixed term or permanent. So, and the increase again, now there's been an increase according to Job Watch. So this is not me, I'm not making this up. According to Job Watch, as of today, it's been increasing again extensively. And I'll explain something. I'll show you some screenshot that I've taken for jobs that are out there. And I'll tell you areas where you can look at. A lot of people are beginning to focus too much on in London, they focus too much on Birmingham. There's a lot of jobs outside London, outside the UK, outside Europe that you can work from your own living room. And that's increasing with the COVID-19. A lot of banks are beginning to take that approach, and I'll show you some examples. So the IR35 has been extended to next year. That's why it's not really going too high, because there's still a perception, where a lot of people are not sure. A lot of banks are spending money in trying to change their structure, so they're kind of reluctant to, open it up to contract. But then again, they need skill sets and all that stuff. So yeah, I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, these are examples of job that have been sent to me and job that I have loads of it in my inbox. I don't have the time to go through them, but these are some of it that the dates I've just pulled out. So we have 29th of March, that was yesterday. This is a job in Malaysia. It's also a remote job. We have the likes of a senior advisory due diligence, that was 20th. We have in Poland, we have in India, and this is the India one, Interactive Broker. I think they're recruiting at the moment. We have in Singapore, we have others in Singapore, we have in United States as well. We have Amy Williams as well as a UK wife, but they're recruiting for people in New York at the moment, and you can be anywhere in the world to do the job. I don't know what their clearance is like, but I'm sure that they can actually give you some access, because I think they're heavily tracking people's computer at the moment. So We have graduate compliance analyst as well. It's paying contract job, paid between 100 to 150 per day. We have the likes of financial crime governance compliance manager, 500 per day. So it all depends. So again, if you're about the money, if you're not about the money, you definitely know where you fall into. There's sometimes that if you're more about the career part or your passion, you will compromise on the money. It depends on whatever you want to do. The market is massive down there. This is another one that was sent to me 2 days ago or yesterday by someone on LinkedIn. She said, who is sat at home thinking they did love to get involved in KYC project. They're recruiting about 15 to 20 roles available, all done via remote working. They're looking to pay between $30 to $45 per hour. So again, there's jobs out there, although a lot of us might think there's no job out there. That's because we're actually limiting the extent in which we are looking for. Someone like me, I'm not looking for too much high-paying job. If I get it, that's fine. But at this stage, I'm also looking for a career progression as well. And if you're looking for a career progression, I can tell you, you can ask people from experience that at some point you have to trade off. Is it that you're trading off the amount you're going to get and simply permanent to get an approved person certificate or wherever the case may be? That's up to you. It's a personal decision. Okay. Now, let's discuss with Padip. Just want to check, is Padip on the call? Because I can hardly track.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much, Padip. Thank you very much again for joining me on this call. So we've got about, let me just double check the amount of people on the call. I think currently we have 29 people on the call. We were actually expecting 35, 36, but that's fine. So Padip, I'm just going to ask you, because there's a lot of people on the call. When I looked at the statistics of people who registered for the sessions, there were about, let me double check, 70% non-experienced. We have 16% experienced, well experienced. We have some people in top level jobs like head of a department. We have 2 people or 3 people head of department. We have someone who's head of compliance. We also have some people who are just working as financial crime, KYC, ML, and the rest is normal KYC experience people, 5 years, 3 years, and 4 years. So just from your experience, Padip, just 5-10 minutes, I just want to ask, how or what would you advise people who are just starting, and how do they, or how have you done it to get to the level in which you are?
Thank you, Olu, and good evening, all of you. I'm hoping you all are keeping well and safe with all this pandemic and the situation. So I guess, you know, just to give you my thoughts about for people who wanted to develop their careers and people who wanted to further enhance and succeed to take further, you know, where they want to develop. One of the things what I have done, and just to give you a just a quick background about me, was I started with Big Four, EY. I qualified as a chartered accountant. Then I knew that I wanted to go into the banking industry, and that's where I wanted to further enhance my career. So I started in my internal audit. And from there, I had obviously a lot of inclination, which I wanted to get into compliance, because that area was quite, you know, an area I enjoyed working, but also an area I felt like, you know, I was learning constantly and also helping my team and my organization to do the right things. And that was an area I found has always been going through change. So if you like something very static where you want to come and you want to do the job and just go, and you know that's something very static, then I think compliance is not like that. Compliance is, as you know, this is a lot of regulations. You are dealing with a lot of technical areas, technical aspects, and there are a lot of risks involved. So this area, the way what I have found, which has kept me more motivated and kept me going is desire to learn and my passion to share knowledge. So one thing which I feel has helped me, or which potentially helps people, is if you constantly drive to promote your and share your knowledge with your colleagues, that will enable you to build your network, and also it will enable you to learn in return. By sharing knowledge, I have always learned, and by sharing knowledge, I have never felt that, look, if I share my knowledge with this person, he will know or she will know and then they will be equal to me. No, in fact, what I found is, in the compliance world, the more knowledge you share, the more you learn. And that second part is to build your network, because wherever you go, wherever you start, make sure you develop a really good relationship and a rapport with your colleagues, because these are the people who will be working with you. And wherever you go, this industry is not, it's quite small. It's just
Absolutely.
as Olu has given an example, this is the second job, our career, our paths have crossed and we have come together, and I'm sure there will be more opportunities where I am looking forward to work with Olu. So one thing, as I said, the most important is keep learning, keep sharing your knowledge, and second is make sure you build a really good strong network with your people who you work, because with your open eyes, you spend most of the time at work. And if you have a good people and you build a really strong network, trust me, these people will look after you, and wherever you go, you will never be out of job. So
Yeah.
that's my advice.
All right, thank you very much, Pradeep. Another question I've got that someone sent to me just now is qualification important? And if it is important, how far could qualification get you? Like, do you really need a qualification to start through KYC, AML? What can I just start? Would I succeed, or do I really need a qualification?
Okay, I think that's a very good question. So if I just give you, let's say, a couple of years back, a lot of the banks, and still they do today, they were investing on their employees to get them recognized qualification, for example, ACAMS, ICA, because they knew that this is something which will develop their people professionally, and also this will get them the right skill set and knowledge what they need, because that was scared at a point in time when a lot of banks were going through regulatory fines, and that's an indication that as our industry was lacking the skill set. So but how the qualification helps you, I think, yes, qualification is a good enabler for you to get your feet into the organization, because it will definitely increase your chance to get the interviews. But does the qualification makes you fit for the job, and is the guarantee to develop and promote you to further succeed? I don't think so. So in one hand, yes, it's good. You should definitely look for it, because it will enable you and will open the door for you. But the thing which will take you further and develop your career would be your learning on the job, how you behave, how you interact with your colleagues, how you learn, and how you share knowledge. That will take you to succeed in your career. And the more you learn, the better for you.
Oh, thank
Does
you
that
very much,
answer?
Pradeep. Yeah, it does. It does. Does anyone else have any question for Pradeep before we let him go? Anyone, please?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, brilliant.
Hi, Pradeep. Thanks for your insight. My question is, what are the chances of someone who hasn't got experience in the sector, who's coming with what he or she believes is are transferable skills? What are the chances of such a person getting a job? Because nowadays every employer wants someone with a bit of experience, if not a lot of it. and you might have like really studied and believe that if I am able to get my foot through the door, I believe I will perform well. I will swim rather than sink. Following your guidelines, as in making friends. Focusing on the job there and learning more. But actually getting your foot in, if you're not experienced, it is a bit hard because every job you look at requests for people with a bit of experience. So what are the chances of getting your foot in if you haven't been in the industry before?
Yeah, I think again that's a very great, question. And I think if we break down this question into two parts, one is that look, what is the current landscape and what was the situation before, how people got into those roles where they did not even had any experience, but there were lot of demand. So there is a simple rule of demand and supply. There was a time when there was a lot of demand and supply was scarce, so even people who did not had experience, but they had the commitment, they had the spark, and they had this dedication where they had the willingness to learn. They were very well welcomed in the roles. As you know, as of today, I think the market is a little bit tough at the moment. So yes, there is always a question which comes that, okay, how much experience you have got previously, and how much experience you have got within that sector. Even today, with my 22 years experience, trust me, when I get a calls or when I am interested for a role, they specifically ask me, okay, for that particular product, how much knowledge you have and how much you have done in your past roles, right? So to answer, I don't think I would say that, for new starters, the way you should look, that there are still roles where, for example, if I just give you an example, there are still roles in the market where other people might not be willing to take it. For example, if it's not paying the right amount, and the new starter, the reason they would like to take it because they would wanted to get their foot into the door, and for them that will be a good starting point. And for the company, because they have a budget constraint, they might, so for them it will be a win-win position, where a lot of organization I have seen, and I have I noticed so many people, they are willing to take people to invest their time to help them to learn, and in return they want commitment from them to give them back. So I think if you look both sides, that yes, the market is tough, there are not many roles, but on the positive side, there are roles. If you are willing to show why you should be the right person to be selected for that role, if you show that willingness and impress the person who is interviewing you, I'm sure you will be able to get something. Does that help your question?
That helps in terms of well, I think you've answered it, but what's I think the challenge there will be to actually find a role to apply for that does not actually request experience. Impressing them during the interview, I get that aspect, but when I actually look up these roles, they almost always request a bit of experience, but maybe I haven't looked enough. Yeah.
So just to add to that, there are specific roles that are coming up, and there's specific roles and areas that I will be touching on in subsequent slides that they're not yet crowded. But then again, you need some level of product understanding. I'll give you an example. We're in the market. If you mention KYC, everyone knows what KYC is. But then if I say, have you got experience in KYC in FX swap? Then that's a different conversation, if that makes sense. So yes, you might understand KYC, but do you understand KYC in treasury? Do you understand KYC in corporate institution banking? Is it in private banking, wealth management. There are specific areas and there are specific products that are coming up these days that a lot of people, they will bounce your CV regardless of the amount of experience you've got if you don't have that level of product understanding, which is what Paddy kind of touched on earlier. But yeah, Paddy?
Yeah, I as I said, look, I think your point is absolutely fair that most of the roles which are coming at the moment, they are coming as they wanted people with experience, relevant experience, because that's the current situation of the market, where potentially looks like there is more supply compared to what demand is, and that's why you can see the spike he has shared. But I can tell you that there has been times when people who did not had experience, but they had done a reasonable research in the company, understanding of some products and some aspect of the topic. When the jobs will come, look, nobody knows how the market will react in the next 2 months, because we are going through this. Yeah, so
Absolutely.
I think if you keep the positive side, that if you really have the passion to come into this, you continue reading, continue learning from your network, build a good network, because let's say you have come on this call, if you know the people, right, and find the opportunities where you go for networking and build the network, that will definitely open some doors for you, that I can tell you. But not necessarily you might end up with the job you dream for, but even if you build if you bring your visibility, it's very important that we find the opportunities to raise our awareness, because we have to build our own brand, right? We have to do our own marketing. The way you do your marketing is sometimes you need to think that you are going for a networking, you might end up meeting with people who are in very well paid jobs, and they may have something in coming up with them, and they might just notice something in you, and you never know, you might get a call from them. So it's a tough market, but I would suggest please invest time in building your network and don't give up.
All right, brilliant. Thank you very much, Paddy. Has anyone else got a question? Because I need to start moving real fast. Okay, I'm just going to take that as no. Thank you very much, Paddy. I really appreciate it.
All right, enjoy your time, and all the very best. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye. So, thank you. So if anyone else has got anything to ask, for example, if you're unable to unmute yourself for some reason, maybe you came late or you logged out and logged in, there is a icon below that says chat. Just type in to say, Olu, I cannot unmute myself. Please unmute me or something like that. So I've just sent a message to say I am here. Let me know, then I will mute you. So I'm just going to proceed now because we've got a lot to cover. We haven't even started. So yes, I'm just going to be moving fast now. So let's discuss with Paddy. Yeah, we've done that. Now, understanding basic banking sector. So I'm just going to minimize this. I don't know why this is not leaving my screen, but I'm glad that you lot can see my screen. Okay, anyways, I'm just going to manage it this way. All right, understanding the basic banking sector. Okay, let's just see if this is a bank. Let's call it a bank A, yeah? And we have an individual. So this is the way, I'm just trying to give you a basic understanding of how a bank works. I know majority of you know how bank works, but I just want to just reiterate that because it's important. That's why it's a foundation session, yeah? We will touch everything from a foundational point of view. If a customer comes to a bank to deposit money, the bank usually creates a department for it and call it retail banking or private banking or whatever way of banking. They do the savings, they do the current, the fixed deposit and all the stuff, wealth management. So this is where bank gets money and call it liquidity, yeah? Which means that at least money is coming in. Then those money that you have actually deposited in your savings account, in your current account, in your fixed deposits or your wealth management or whatever, they then open another banking department and call it, say, corporate banking department. This is where they send your money out to be used for businesses. So there is trade finance, there is clearing, there is correspondent banking, there is syndicate loan. Trust me, if you look at there is a million products that banks usually have. And when I get into those risk score calculator that I've sent to you guys, I know it might not make sense now. I will explain, and you will see the amount of products that a bank has, and you can do an assessment on a customer by yourself by the end of the day. So if any bank calls you, you definitely know how to review a customer from start to finish, because this is the first time. Majority of you guys that have got the calculator, this is the first time ever we're rolling out such an automated calculator. If you received it, then you can keep reviewing as many customers as you can automatically by yourself. Okay, now we have treasury department. These are the guys who they do the swap. They can actually connect to you customer that wants to change funds. You want to move your money from dollar to pound, yen, baht, naira, wherever. They do that. They do FX swap. They do bonds. And again, the amount of products and the amount of sub products that can be conducted under treasury is 1,000,001. Yeah, and set up sub department are being created as part of that. You have the trade guys. You have, it's just a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, but the problem, what I'm trying to establish is, bank just conduct two processes: take money, give money out. Take money, give money out. That's all bank does. But then in between the take money and the let money go out, there is 1,000,001 things that could go on. Now, this 1,000,001 thing is what you need to attach to the basic, what we're gonna talk about in this whole process. So it depends on, if you're doing KYC, make sure you understand KYC and another area of products. If you're doing KYC or AML, understand AML and another product. Just don't do KYC as general. You can maybe pick up as many as possible, understand wealth management, syndicated loan, correspondent banking, trade finance. This will give you an edge. And I'm telling you because that is what is coming up in the nearest future. Yeah. And thank God that Pradeep actually mentioned it as well. So this becomes intracontinental connection between departments. Now, it is very interesting because if assuming this customer has more than one product in the bank, then you say he has a connection with savings, he has another with another department, he has another one in more than one department, it becomes complex. Then someone has to monitor this person's activity, correct? And it could also, now imagine if this guy is not just one customer in the bank, imagine this guy they have 20 customers of this type of customers, individual. Bear in mind, individual is one type of customer. We could have government as a customer. Like in my bank, we have loads of government as our customer. We have loads of hospitals as customer, loads of construction firms as our customer. Police need a bank account. Every business in the bank account, every type of business in the world need a bank account. Now imagine if you have close to about 80,000 customers, everyone having different type of information, different type of addresses. This one will change the address tomorrow, that change the address tomorrow. There is someone who needs to maintain this. And that is where your job has come into play, KYC, because we'll talk about what KYC literally means and what that means. But again, that is one need for someone to make sure that everyone's profile is up to date, everyone's profile is in compliance. However, there are some aspects as well, and this information I'm giving you is high level. We will do a deep dive in a minute, maybe not in this session though. Let's say we have customers. Now we've onboarded customers, we open accounts for customers, assuming our customer is our bank is a retail bank. We only deal with individuals, we don't deal with corporates, only individuals. Now, we need to keep monitoring these guys and we keep screening them for information, for any issue. The moment anyone changes any significant information, maybe one of them got married, a lady, then they changed their last name, or somebody actually moved their address or changed their job, or all of a sudden a significant amount of money actually came into the account, or someone's sporadic transfer of money, anything, the scenarios is 1,000,000,001. Someone has to monitor it. Now, the question I'm asking is, for some of us who are already doing KYC and AML, have you thought about looking at areas of product and looking at transaction monitoring, looking at automation, looking at how you can actually help? Within transaction monitoring alone, there is about 84 controls. How many controls do you know? How many controls can you learn in the split of the 6 months that you're going to be at home, 3 months, 4 months? There's a lot of materials out there that you can help yourself with, because transaction monitoring can never stop. As long as people are actually paying money, people are receiving money, transaction monitoring will always be a problem. Yeah. Now that I've mentioned earlier on, I'm not sure if you guys are actually taking notes, but I mentioned earlier on that there are 2 major areas in which you can go from the ground level of KYC and AML. You can either go through compliance or go through financial crime. And at the end of the day, you can also end up as audits, depending on what path you want to take. So I'm going to talk about compliance. I'll take compliance and I'll come back to financial crime. Then we'll talk about KYC. Yeah. Now, as a compliance person, you can either start as a research and document gatherer. You can become a KYC associate in compliance. You can become a KYC analyst. You can become a compliance analyst. You can become a compliance officer, QC. You can become a compliance manager. You can work as a consultant, SME. You can become a policy writer. You can become a senior consultant. And please bear in mind, this is not in a chronological order. You don't have to do research, document, KYC analyst, associate like that. You can start wherever, however you want to enter the market. But majority of the time, if you have KYC and AML background, everything becomes much more easier. You can build on it, rather, because I've seen a lot of compliance people who do not even understand KYC and they are stuck in the old control, and all they do or all they know how to write or do is horizon scanning or regulatory obligation. They cannot move into anything else because majority of the control in financial crime and compliance rely on understanding the customer before you can build on it. That is why I always advise people start with KYC ML and you can build on it. Yeah. We have associate director, we have directors, we have managing directors, and it goes on and on. Yeah. Now, compliance is divided into 2 major areas. We have the regulations and monitoring, we have the policy and mapping. The people who does the regulatory and monitoring, really, honestly, you don't really need KYC for that. For regulatory and monitoring, all you need to know is enjoy regulations, enjoy reading regulation and interpreting regulations. That way, if you've got a legal background or you don't really have a legal background, find yourself into regulatory monitoring aspect where all you do is you track regulations, you advise regulations, but it's very, 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 very restrictive. Yeah. If you're going into policy and mapping, then you need alignment and gap. You need to understand a wide range of products. You need to understand regulations, not just monitoring. You need to understand KYC in and out, because you'll be the one writing the policies. You'll be the one adjusting the policies, mapping the policies against regulations, sanction change, trade policy. It's just a lot. And these are areas that I'm trying to open up our minds to, that don't limit yourself to KYC and AML. I will always reiterate it. KYC, AML is the foundation. 1 year, 2 years, get yourself out of it. Yeah. Now, let's go into financial crime. Yeah. Financial crime is quite more detailed in terms of controls. Why? Because it requires a lot of investigation. So financial crime, to start from operations, you have the guys that does the KYC, CDD, EDD, you have the AML screening, you have the transaction monitoring, either for payments, for trade monitoring, you have ongoing customer due diligence, you have the guys that does the KYC admin, you have KYC officer. It's a lot of information and how you can actually go about it. You also have advisory specialists, FCC, you have the policy and the procedure, you have remediation and change specialists, you have the CTF, counter-terrorist financing, sanction, ABC, embargo. I'm not trying to overwhelm you. I am just trying to call out areas in which you can specialize, because a lot of people just think KYC is just KYC. KYC is bigger than anything else you can think of. We have the sanction, ABC, embargo, we have regulatory reporting, we have SAR filing and internal MI, we have FC investigation, we have training, we have advisory, and it goes on and on. You can go on to become the head risk management, regional head financial crime, global head financial crime director, and it goes on and on like that. Yeah. This is even more high level. There's some granular information as well that we can touch on, but because of lack of time, it's already 9 o'clock. I've got half an hour left. Yes, half an hour. All right. Now, financial crime is divided into 2 roles, similar to how compliance is divided into 2 roles. We have the investigative roles, which include the pattern control and the reactive control. So pattern control are people who does transaction monitoring post-transaction. So the transaction already happened, or post-trade. People who then look at reviews that already happened or information that already happened, create a pattern and either find a risk around it, like if you're not, like file a suspicious activity to the government, regulator, or share information. Or we also have reactive controls. So reactive controls could be like just at the junction of the information. It's similar to pattern as well. Usually used during correspondent banking. We also have prevention roles. So prevention is before it happens. Investigation is it has already happened and you're investigating and creating a summary. But there's another area in financial crime is you're not investigating, you're preventing. So you'll be the one talking about the controls before the information and preempting. An example is KYC. KYC is also a part of the preventive control. Onboarding, you do an onboarding before you take on a customer. These are called projection controls or proactive controls as well. Yeah. Please, if you have any question, please feel free to unmute yourself. Ask me any question. Pop in. I think somebody actually sent me a chat. No. Okay. If you have any question, please feel free to unmute yourself. We have GnB. Let's assume this is GnB Bank Limited. What will happen is now we're going a bit into KYC and financial crime and compliance, just a bit. Why is financial crime necessary, or why is KYC necessary? There's a lot of financial crime risk out there. Financial crime is a crime that is committed through the financial system. An example, but not limited to what you're seeing on the screen, we have the market abuse, we have the inside trading, we have fraud, which is common with retail banking or the normal type of banking that we have, credit card and ATM cards and other stuff. We have bribery and corruption, we have terrorist financing, we have money laundering. All these crimes are rooted through financial institution and non-banking financial institution. So there are areas in which you can specialize in as well. You see some people they start with AML KYC. It's very rare for you to see within a bank a fraud expert who is also a bribery and corruption expert, who is also a money laundering expert or a terrorist financial expert, who is also a surveillance expert or market abuse expert, insider dealing, or who is also a sanction expert. Trust me, it is almost impossible. Though they might have like a bit of knowledge on a bit of it, but you cannot have, and this gives people like, if you're starting your career, areas of interest, you can then decide, I want to focus more on, after my KYC ML, I want to teach towards corruption, bribery and corruption, and banks will start chasing you when they know you have extensive knowledge on that. When you go for your interview, you talk about it, or terrorist finance, money laundering, or market abuse, and these are areas where you can explore and gives you advantage over others. Let's assume, now we have all these risks I've listed out. The kind of risk that is common to market abuse and insider dealing are usually brokers. These are people who they're the brokers for shares or exchange or bonds or wherever it is. They actually act as intermediary between the issuer and the person who is collecting it and the person who is actually making payment. On the fraud side, usually banks that deals with savings accounts, ISA and all the stuff, ATM cards, credit card, are more prone to fraud. We have the likes of bribery and corruption. If you have an organization that they deal a lot with oil companies, or they have a lot of oil company customers, or they are oil company themselves, there's a lot of bribery and corruption in there. You have the likes of terrorist financing, charity, church, mosque, gathering organization, foundations. They are also prone to terrorist financing. So if you see an organization or a bank that has a lot of customers as charity, they have a lot of churches as customer, banks, Muslim as I said Muslim, mosques as customers, they have a lot of foundation trust as customers, they are more exposed to terrorist financing. So you could specialize in areas like that. Money laundering is general, banks, and it cut across a lot of institutions. Now, there are other people who do this analysis that I'm showing you on the screen. Now, someone would have to do all this analysis in the bank to say, there is a need to identify this customer, there's a need to identify this risk, and do a mapping and identify controls. This is what financial crime people do. So you can see it as, oh, this is all complex. I don't understand this. But the reason why I'm actually highlighting this is it starts from KYC and AML to understand the risk for each of these controls, as well as identifying the risk and understanding the customer. Yeah. All right. All this risk requires controls around them, and these are the controls that I've actually highlighted here. So we have KYC, AML, and screening, which actually form the foundation of. We have technology, IT people. So they're IT people who specialize in a financial institution. They'll tell you they have IT experience in SQL, they have IT experience in Python, they know how to migrate this and that, but they specialize in financial crime. So that's another area. If you're an IT expert, you can actually get into that. If you're a legal background, you can get into policy. If you don't really have any experience, you want to start from the start, you can start as operation into the KYC, ML. You can get into transaction monitoring. You can do MI reporting if you've got a very strong background in, say, Excel or whatever, mapping data and stuff. You can go into governance and regulatory compliance, strategy and risk appetite. It is too massive for you not to think that there is a lot of opportunities in KYC market. And I'll tell you why it's hard for people to get a job in KYC is because at the ground level of KYC, everyone just knows KYC. No one knows KYC with this. No one knows KYC with that. No one knows KYC with this. Everyone just knows KYC. And KYC becomes, if the demand is low, why? Because a lot of people actually knows KYC, then why would they choose you over someone else? So you need to up your game. You need to understand that KYC alone might not be enough. You need to do KYC and add something to the KYC to make you stand out in the market. Yeah. Okay, this is called the financial crime framework. This will give you an overview of what it is. Now, responsibility. Now we've not even started KYC. Really. Yeah, so because I promised that the first session is going to be talking about preparing your mindset for what you want to get into. Then we'll talk about the real KYC and what you really need to do and how you'll be doing it in a bank or non-bank or wherever you find yourself, whatever new job you get. Then yeah. So there is something we call the responsibility framework, and the responsibility framework is independent of financial institution or bank or whatever. It does not matter what industry you find yourself. There's always going to be a board of people who sit at the board level, director, even if it's a limited company. Like for example, I am the board member of my company. I'm director. I am the alpha and the omega. Although I have people who work with me as well. You have the board. Then at the middle level, you have line managers. Line managers actually span between managers, senior managers, senior managers, VP, presidents. They're all called line managers. Yeah, even head of business, they're all called line managers. Now we have the operations. Now the operations is everyone else. If you're not the line manager, then you're on the operations. Why? Because the reason why I'm showing this responsibility framework is because of people who might be at the stage of going for interview, or you might be preparing yourself for interview. It is important that you know that the roles and the responsibility, knowing where you fall, is 70%. No, sorry, I take that back. That's about 50% of your job interview, because if you are applying for a job as the line manager and you're speaking at the level of an operation, then definitely, regardless of your knowledge in the product or your knowledge, they might actually not put you as a fit for the team, because clearly you actually do not understand the role that you're about to take. Yeah. Or if you're the person who is going for a line manager, or you're going for an operational job, and you're talking like, or you're speaking from a level of line manager, you're talking about you allocate tasks, you make sure you sign off, you do not definitely know your responsibility, then you might find it difficult to get a job. So when you get your job description, it's very important for you to interpret it and understand in what of this responsibility framework do you fall under. If you are at the board level always set policies, they set the value, that's their job, they make decisions. The line manager implements and forces the policy that is made by the board, while everyone else actually underpins it and actually carry out what the board has said through the line managers. Yeah. Okay, I'm not going to talk too much on that. We have areas like the KYC admin, they all sit under the operations. Okay, now this is the agenda for today. I'm just about to start KYC, and we'll talk about transaction monitoring as well. Does anyone have any question, please? before I move on? Any question? No? Okay. I'm just going to kick off. So at the end of this session, that's at the end of the 5 days session, we expect everyone to have a basic understanding of what KYC is, and that's a full course. Everyone should have understanding of a customer risk assessment calculator. Everyone should know or understand introduction to transaction monitoring, regulatory compliance reporting, how you do that. Then we will perform a case for those of you who already have a calculator and risk assessment, and then we would end the session. So let's start with KYC. What is KYC and what is so important about KYC? KYC, AML, and CTF. So I'm just going to give out CTF. CTF stands for counter-terrorist financing. AML stands for anti-money laundering, and KYC is know your customer. So for this session, I'm just going to be very clear. We would be touching on foundation KYC. AML, it requires a different level of information. I will also be covering that with specific people on the webinar today, and the rest we would have to discuss that offline. Okay, now let's assume this is an individual, a man or a woman, we don't know. If we conduct identification on this customer, part of identification literally means you gather information about the full name, date of birth, place of birth, nationality, resident address, occupation, and purpose of account. That alone is called identification. Now, this information that I've actually called out is not the entire information you gather about a customer. This is just an example representation. In the calculator, there is extensive information in there. There's another calculator that I might send out, which is meant for wealth management. The one I sent out is meant for corporate and correspondent banking. Yeah. Okay. So you identify information. Identification literally means someone gives you a form and you have to complete it. It's the same process that police use whenever they storm a crime scene. They'll ask you a lot of questions. They're asking you a lot of questions doesn't mean that they believe it. They just want you to give out as much information as possible. Even with the police, it's called identification. Why? They want to gather information about you. The moment they gather information, then they verify. How do they verify? They verify your full name of birth using maybe documents. It could be ID card, passport documents. Your date of birth, they might use your birth certificate or your passport. Your place of birth, they might use your birth certificate. Your nationality, they might use your passport. Resident address, they might ask for your utility bill. Occupation, they might ask for your pay slips or whatever. Then you would then provide why you need the account. Is it for salary purposes? Is it for this? Is it for that? Now, bear in mind that identification is only when you fill the form. Verification is when you use documents to verify the information has been completed on the form, and that forms identification completed and verification completed. So I'm going to talk more on that. Now, there is the monitoring part of things. Now, the monitoring part actually monitors the things that you said you want to use the account for. So that's where transaction monitoring, a little bit part of transaction monitoring that I'll be explaining, that's the foundation part come into play. Now, part of what the monitoring, those of you that would be interested in working in transaction monitoring, is looking at the excessive ATM activity depending on the bank scenarios. You'll be looking at the customer spending behavior, patterns of fund receivable and transfer, common patterns and country of fund transfer. So if a part of this customer that we understand him, his occupation is in London, his address is in London, his nationality is British, place of birth is the UK, date of birth is within someone who is not retired, place of birth, and we verify all the information, then majority of the spending, according to what we understand him, maybe he doesn't have time in the day between 9 to 5, he only spend food around 1 o'clock, customer, or he doesn't spend more than 4,000 in a month or 5,000. These are all the things that the transaction monitoring system will create a data for you and create an alert, and you would then be the one to assess it against the KYC profile. Now you can see that I'm beginning to add the piece together. It's important that for you to understand the real aspect, and I'm not talking about, for those of us who do alert piercing for transaction monitoring, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the real transaction monitoring of a customer, either an individual or corporate aspect. Now I'm not talking about the post-transaction, I'm talking about prepayments, I'm talking about even live transaction monitoring in terms of real-time screening as well as payment screening. So I'll be going into that later on. But let's just continue. You look at the change in the behavior related to peers. You use a dormant account. For some of us who uses good banks, I use the word good banks because I don't know. When you spend a certain amount of money or you buy something online in a jurisdiction or country that you would not usually buy, usually you might get an alert, or your bank might just call you or send you a text message and hold on the phone to say, please type yes if you're the one that actually have all this transaction, or press no. And this is part of the automated transaction monitoring that is out of the daytime transaction, but there is some other people who are monitoring it day and night for every alert that is actually being spit out from the system. And that's another aspect that I have a masterclass on for people who wants to go deep down into how to tune a transaction monitoring system, look at how scenario based, and look at other areas as well. Talk about that later. Now, identification and verification actually creates the background for KYC as well as monitoring review cycle. Yeah. Now let's go deeper. Now let me give you a very typical example that I always give all delegates. Let's look at a short case study. Yeah. There is the need for KYC is very important because KYC literally tells you who your customer is and what they are, and where they are from and when and how. Now, if you do not have a valid or complete KYC on file, it's impossible for you to know what your customer is not, because you need to know before you know what is not, if that makes any sense. So if I know your name is A, I definitely know your name is not B, because I already know that your name is A because I have a passport that verifies it. So if your name is B, then something is wrong. Either I am not getting it right in the sense that the passport I'm holding has expired, or you change your name and I'm not aware of it. That makes a dysfunctional KYC profile, which means it needs updates. Yeah, that's where the investigator comes into play. All right, let's assume there's a drug dealer. He owns a textile shop. For some of us who likes knuckles and all this stuff. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying. There's a drug dealer who owns a textile shop. Say he sends the drug to Africa. Why Africa? That's because the border between Africa and Europe is not strong. So they call it risky border in trade finance. For some of us who do trade finance. So from Africa, they then send the drugs to Europe. Why? Because the man or this drug dealer does not have money. He makes money from drugs, so he needs to send drugs to get money back from the drugs. Yeah, because all he has is just a pile of drugs, but he needs to get the money to Europe. Now, the reason why he's sending it to Africa to Europe is because between Africa and Europe there is a very porous border. And why Europe? It's because the highest consumption of drugs is in Europe. Yeah. Now he has people contact who sells the drugs in Europe. The moment you sell the drug, you pay in cash. There are strategic areas in which they sell drugs. This is just an example of one crime out of a billion crime. I'm just as an example. By the time they sell the drugs, they pay in cash. Areas like club, bars, on the streets, slanging areas, projects. You get people to actually buy drugs. You know, exotic areas where you can give rich people drugs and they pay you in cash. Basically, no one pays transfer, you know, for drugs. So they pay the money in cash. The guy who sells the drugs go to a bank that's still in Europe to deposit the cash. Now, depositing the cash, he then wires the money back to Africa. Now, he has actually accumulated a lot of money. Now, I know some of you who are quite smart and some of you already working in KYC might be thinking, oh, hold on a minute, there's a threshold for a certain amount that you can actually deposit. Yes, there's a threshold, and there's also below the threshold, and there are some customers that they've waived scenarios for. That's a different conversation we'll have anyways. Now, they send the money from Europe to Africa, wire transfer. Now, the money is sent to Africa, sent through another bank in Africa to an exchange house. Now, what's an exchange house? An exchange house is going to change, basically. They change currency, either electronically or physically. Now, when the money gets to Bureau de change, you can change it from any currency back to another currency. You lose certain value and you gain other value. The reason why they do that is because to lose the audit trail of where the money is coming from. I'll explain in a minute. Now, when the money is actually from an exchange now, it's then sent to another bank. Let's take, for example, Lebanese Canadian Bank. And this is a true life story, by the way. It really happened. The bank, Lebanese Canadian Bank, has ceased to exist because of this particular transaction that happened. They've been shut down for this reason. They sent the money to Lebanese Canadian Bank, and Lebanese Canadian Bank actually sent some money unknowingly to a charity organization that is linked to Hezbollah, who is a terrorist group and a militant. And some of the money was actually sent to the United States to buy used cars. Some of it was actually wired to China to buy textile. Some of the used cars was then shipped to Africa. Now, if you're thinking, why Africa? Because Africa is the highest consumption of used cars. So Africa is a home where all used cars end up. Majority of used cars end up. Now, if they send it to Africa, now the money, as you can see that the audit trail has changed from red, has changed from red here, been changed into cash, it's changed into green, and now it's gotten here, it's changed into blue, and it also changed into blue, which means that the chances of you tracking the fund is really difficult. Now, at the point where it's at South America, that individual drug dealer can assess it. Why? Because South America shipping in textile looks normal business because the drug dealer already have a textile shop owner. So there, that is where trade finance comes into play, where you could use over invoicing, under invoicing, ghost shipping, and other stuff. That's why I said it's very important for you to pick one or two products and learn it properly, because that way you can then understand how KYC can be transposed into a product. Okay, now if you look at the first one, let me go back and analyze this whole story. It sounds like a story, but now let's look at it from a KYC or financial crime investigator. At the point where this guy sold the drugs, the money is placed into the bank. That is the strongest control that a bank should have at that point, and that should be the most difficult part for the criminal to transfer the proceed of crime, because the crime is the drugs, the proceed of it is the money, and at the point where they're putting it in the bank account should be very difficult for them. That's where the bank should have a very strong cash policy, and at that point is where they can then say, oh, we don't accept this money, where are you getting your money from? And that is the point where KYC is the strongest, because you need to understand the customer who already has an account with you, because a criminal can never have a very sequential transaction, and if they do, it will be too sequential for it not to even pop up in the system. Anyways, I'll explain that in transaction monitoring aspect. So they deposit the cash in there. That part is called placement. Now, they also have layering stage. Now, the layering stage is the second stage of the money laundering, where once the money has entered into the financial institution, which has formed financial crime, the layering stage is where you mix the money to lose the origin of the transaction. And we have the last stage, which is the integration, is where the money is then used to buy anything you want, to lose the audit trail from the first and the second stage, where the individual can then assess the fund. Okay. Now let's talk about background. Now I'm taking it just a bit before we start talking about how we review a real life case. So we would be reviewing a real life case using the calculator. And if you don't have a calculator, please send me an email and I'll